is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video, and in this video we're going to dive into the 2021 New York Giants defense. I'll talk about the roster, I'll talk about some of the roles that I think these players will have, and I'll talk about why at year's end the New York Giants defense very well could be, if not the best defense in the league, among one of the top 2, 3, or 4 units in the entire NFL. That is right, I have top 5 expectations for this defense going into the year. And some fans that may be watching this may be calling me crazy, especially if you're an Eagles or a Washington fan, but that's genuinely how I feel, and I'll give my reasoning throughout this video as to why. Now, going into last year, I'll be the first to say that I thought this New York Giants defense was going to be a liability. I thought the offense was going to be a little bit more advanced than the defense based off the year before. And, of course, Dave Gettleman and Patrick Graham and Joe Judge worked a lot of magic, and we got a lot more out of this defense last year than we expected. And I could go over the sack numbers, the knockdown numbers, the pressure numbers. I've gone over that in the past. The Giants, despite having a great edge rusher, were top 12 or 13 in all 3 categories. I think we're 10th or 11th in sacks, as high as we've been in that category in quite some time. So we were able to still get pressure on the quarterback despite not having a great edge rusher. I've also talked about our schedule, but I haven't really dove into in terms of the individual offenses they've gone up against and how they've performed. Well, one thing I want to point out based off last year's defense before the additions we've made, last year in the 16 games that the New York Giants defense played, now also factor in that we played a pretty tough schedule. 7 of the 10 teams that we played outside of the division made the playoffs, and nearly 8, the Arizona Cardinals being the 8th team that narrowly missed the playoffs. So we did play a pretty challenging schedule outside of the division. Of the 16 opponents that we played, the New York Giants held their opponents to their average points per game or less in 14 of the 16 contests, meaning if the Seattle Seahawks averaged 26 points a game, we held them to 26 or less. So whoever we went up against, that individual team, we held them to their average or less in 14 of our 16 games. The 2 games that we did not were in the first 5 games of the year, where the defense and the offense were still getting more acclimated to the schemes. In our last 11 games, the New York Giants held the opposition to their average or less. That speaks volumes about the defense, and it's why last year the New York Giants defense ranked 9th in points against and 11th in yards against. One area where the defense was incredible was in the red zone. We ranked 2nd in red zone efficiency. And last year, the New York Giants had a bend but don't break approach. Despite that, we still only gave up the 11th most yards, and we didn't get much help from the offense, and we'll talk more about that. But this year, I expect this defense to be much more aggressive. Why? Because the additions we've made on that side, mainly being Adoree Jackson, right? We all knew that going into the year that this defense was going to rely on coverage. We needed better play at the cornerback spot. We needed to be able to play press man to be able to send blitzes. Well, we didn't blitz a lot. We were like 20th or 21st in the league in terms of blitz frequency because I think the New York Giants realized Isaac Yiadom was a liability. That will no longer be the case. Even despite not being super aggressive and despite being down in a lot of these games and the offense not necessarily having to throw the ball that much, the Giants still were able to create 22 turnovers, which ranked 10th in the league, and they were even for the year in the turnover differential. They turned it over 22 times. They created 22 turnovers, which doesn't sound great. It's at 0, but it is a dramatic improvement. As a matter of fact, it was the biggest improvement in the league. The year before, we were minus 17. And like I said, we were 9th in points against. I might have said we were 11th in yards against. We were 12th in yards against. Had the 2nd best red zone defense, and we were 8th in yards per carry against. We only surrendered 30 points or more twice all year. Both were within the first 5 games. And we only surrendered 300 yards passing twice all year. And I think one of those were in the first 5 games as well. I think it was against the San Francisco 49ers. But the one thing that I really wanted to point out, that this defense did not get any help from the offensive side of the football. Last year, even though we got much better over the last 8 games, we were actually dead last in the league in time of possession over the first 8 games. We finished 26th in the league, and this has been an area that the New York Giants have definitely struggled with year in and year out. We definitely got much better, though, like I said, over the last 8 contests, which is why we started to win some games. But last year, despite the fact that the New York Giants were ranked 26th in the time of possession, meaning that the defense was out there a lot more than other teams, we still ranked 12th in yards and 9th in points. To put it in perspective of the other teams that were ranked below us, 27 through 32, Detroit was dead last in both. 32nd in points against, 32nd in yards against. Houston was 27th in points against, 30th in yards against. Jacksonville was 31st in both. The New York Jets were 26th in points, 24th in yards. The Cowboys were 28th in points, 23rd in yards. The Titans were 24th in points, 28th in yards. So every team below us, and it's obviously common sense, they're on the field more, they're being asked to do more. We're near dead last in the league in both statistical categories. I think the highest that I said for any one of the teams, whether it be yards and points, I think it was 23, the Dallas Cowboys in yards against. The Giants were 12th rather, and 9th. So they were still a well above average defense despite getting no help from the offensive side of the football. So before we even get into the additions and talk about Patrick Graham, let's talk about the fact that the New York Giants this year inevitably are going to have more help. I'm telling you right now, there is no way that the New York Giants offense is going to be dead last or second to dead last in the league like they were last year. With the pieces that we've added, with getting Saquon Barkley back, with Daniel Jones more acclimated to the offense, the defense is going to be asked to have to do less. And I think they're going to be a lot more aggressive because of the pieces that we've added, which should only help the offense even more. But this offense, it may not be spectacular. We all know that we have question marks on the offensive line, and I'll have a video up on that probably tomorrow or the day after. But this offense will absolutely be better. I expect that time of possession number to be definitely better. When you add Kenny Golladay, when you add Kadarius Toney, Saquon Barkley, all these weapons, you have to figure we're going to pick up a few more extra first downs, which will help assist that defense both in field possession and time of possession. Also, the fact that they're going to be aggressive, I don't expect them to be on the field as much in terms of on defense, because we're not going to have a bend but don't break approach. We're going to go after the quarterbacks. But I wanted to point that out, the fact that they got no help, they were still able to be as productive as they were. In terms of the defense as a whole, obviously the one main subtraction from the defense from last year was Dalvin Tomlinson. And if you look at the units as a whole, I would say the defensive line is probably the only unit where we didn't improve, but I could argue that we probably are going to stay status quo. Yes, Dalvin Tomlinson are big shoes to fill. He's very good, but we brought back Lorenzo Carter. You have to figure, Leonard Williams. You have to figure that Dexter Lawrence is going to progress more as a pro going into the third year of his career, or fourth year of his career. Third year, rather. Fedi Adenabo, I thought, was a really nice piece that we added that could play off the edge and can play on the inside. B.J. Hill actually had a really strong rookie season for the New York Giants. Now he's going to get more of a role. Austin Johnson and Danny Shelton should help in terms of stuffing the run. No, are any of these guys going to replace Dalvin Tomlinson individually? No. But as a unit, with the additions we've made and the players that we've kept, I think this defensive line could still be amongst one of the best in the NFL. So I'll say we kind of stayed status quo there. But the one thing that we desperately needed on this defense last year was coverage, and we needed that second corner, and we needed more talent at the edge. Well, we went out there, and we drafted Azeez Ojulari in the second round of this year's draft. Many felt should have been a first-round prospect. Fits the scheme very well, has great bend off the edge. I think he's going to be an immediate contributor. I'm not telling you he's going to get 10 sacks, because I think the Giants proved last year that they're kind of sack by association. They're going to get sacks from all over. It's going to be via scheme, via pressure up the middle, corner blitzes, safety blitzes, whatever it may be. But having a guy as talented as Ojulari is definitely going to help and assist in getting pressure on the quarterback. Of course, Lorenzo Carter didn't play pretty much all of last year. He looked good the first 3 or 4 games, and we'll have to see how he responds off the injury. But if Carter is healthy, that's another major addition to that group. You also are getting O'Shane Ximines back. We added Ryan Anderson, who in limited playing time with Washington before they changed the scheme this past year, when he got to start the last 4 games in 2019, had 4 forced fumbles, and I think he had 5 sacks. So he's a former second-round pick who definitely has some talent. And we had another rookie in Ellerson Smith, who I think could be a good situational edge rusher. So we absolutely improved there. We definitely got more talent off the edge. And not to mention, you now have Patrick Graham, second year in the scheme. These players are going to be more involved, more acclimated to it. Graham more involved to the players more involved to Patrick Graham and looking to what he's going to do. And bringing in a player like Azeez Ojulari, I think it should be a seamless transition. Georgia, as Joe Judge said yesterday, runs a very similar defense to that of the New York Giants. In the middle, we added Reggie Ragland. I think he's going to help in terms of run situations. I think he's a good run-stuffing linebacker. Tate Crowder played decent for the New York Giants, especially for a guy that was the last pick in the draft. Devontae Downs, don't expect to see him much, but Blake Martinez will continue to be that man in the middle that gets the majority of the snaps for the New York Giants. So I think we stayed status quo there. Maybe Ragland is a slight improvement over Mayo, but I think we stayed status quo with that unit, which was a pretty decent unit last year for the New York Giants. And then finally, the secondary is what is going to make this defense work. And we have some major additions in that unit. Now, you think about this secondary last year, you had Isaac Yiadom starting as your second cornerback. You add Adoree Jackson. That is a dramatic improvement. I don't care how you feel about Jackson, whether you think he's an injury waiting to happen, whatever it may be. Maybe you think it's an overrated signing. He's definitely a major improvement at a position where you need strong corner play if you want to run a defense like this. James Bradbury, of course, was the rock in that secondary. Isaac Yiadom provides his good depth. The same for Julian Love. Sam Beal, I think, will be off the team. Darnay Holmes in the slot, and then the safety position, and I didn't even mention our rookie Aaron Robinson, who I actually think could be a really nice chess piece that could blitz, and we possibly could use him in the slot as well. And then our safety spot, you have Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers, but the other major addition, because I don't really count him last year, especially being that he was a rookie and only played the last 3 or 4 games, is Xavier McKinney. So you add 2 key pieces to this defense going into this year. Adoree Jackson should be an instant contributor, and you have to figure McKinney will be a much improved year 2 where he's healthy going in and a guy that fits this scheme very well. So with the additions at the corner spot and the edge and just more, familiarity with this defense and the fact that the offense has to help them out more than they did last year. There's no way with the additions we made on offense that we're going to be as poor as we were the prior season. I have to think that this defense this year could be dynamite. And when I say dynamite, I'm talking top 5 or better. I think they're going to force a lot more turnovers than they did last year, even though they were still 10th in that category. They're going to be a lot more aggressive. And if the offense is playing well, the opposition is going to have to throw the football more, meaning more opportunities for strip sacks, more opportunities for interceptions. This Giants defense this year will be, make no mistake about it, the driving force if the New York Giants are going to win football games. And I think we're finally getting back to New York Giants football. Is it a complete defense? Probably not. We could probably use 1 or 2 more final pieces, but it's pretty damn close. And with Patrick Graham calling the plays, I'm excited to see what he could dial up with more talent on that end. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.